I'm David Cash. I'm the Regional Administrator for U.S. EPA New England. That's the 6 New England states and 10 federally recognized tribes. So I came here today to talk about an enormous opportunity that's coming from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law from Congress and the Biden-Harris administration. One program in particular is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. It's $27 billion that is going to be dispersed to financing entities around the United States to invest federal dollars that will catalyze private sector dollars for clean energy deployment. Now, at this point, sounds kind of normal, federal dollars going into investments. But the really key thing about the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund is targeting for development in communities, low-income and disadvantaged communities, those who have been left behind, those who have been overburdened and underserved, those who are facing a whole range of environmental injustices. And one of the challenges of scaling is that if these communities are not at the table, you're not going to get the environmental justice benefits that is necessary to right past wrongs, but you're actually also not going to get the emissions reductions we want. It's classic top-down deployment of technologies won't work, where there are communities who have expertise, experience with what happens on the ground in their communities. So the whole idea of this, in addition to the $27 billion, is another series of funds that are designed to do technical assistance, bring these communities to the table, train them, support them as they move forward to access these federal funds. It's never been done on this scale. And the pilots that we've done already that are bringing electric school buses to communities, and those communities that have, for example, the highest asthma rates, or to develop solar farms in communities that formerly had hazardous waste sites in them, or massive explosion of the offshore wind industry that is seeing development in ports like New Bedford and New London and Bridgeport, where those investments are going to have a huge impact in those communities, because those are the communities that are hit first and worst in climate change, and those are the communities that have not taken advantage of economic development as we've seen big tech booms in the past, biopharm, IT, etc. So what's next, first of all, is to center climate justice in climate action. If it's not centered, you're not going to have the right people at the table. So what's next is to make sure that the investments that we're teeing up right now go to the communities to give them the support and the technical assistance that they need, bring NGOs to the table, municipalities to the table, states to the table, with EPA and the Department of Energy, Department of Housing and Urban Development, so that as we invest these funds in communities, they're going to what's going to actually help the communities, going to what the communities want, going to the kind of technologies that will give them clean energy, lower electric bills, so they won't have cold winter winds blowing through their doors, so their summers are comfortable. Those are the kinds of investments that we have to make, and we are ramping that up already. But with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and other Inflation Reduction Act funds, this is at a scale that has never happened in this country before. Yeah, that's a great question. So in the school bus example, there's $5 billion. And the idea is that as these dollars go out to communities and they replace their old, smelly diesel school buses, that because this vast investment is happening, school bus companies, innovators, R&D firms are going to develop the cheaper and cheaper and cheaper school buses. So the price differential between a diesel school bus and an electric school bus will disappear. And we're already seeing that. We already see that there's some EVs that are almost hitting price parity. Solar is at price parity in some places. Wind is at price parity in some places. So it's the government making these investments and bringing the price down through economies of scale and investments in research and development. That's how this is going to scale, again, at a level that we've never seen in this country. In some technologies, that's already happening, right? We're seeing that in offshore wind. We're seeing that in solar. We're almost there with electric vehicles. And for something like school buses, might take a little bit longer. And we're already there with energy efficiency. So retrofitting homes saves money in the short, medium, and long term. So for many of these things, it's just been the barrier of making sure that communities are engaged, that communities understand how to access federal funding and how utilities, states, cities can invest those funds in a way that will advance the interests of these communities? Oh, great question. So there are a variety of different ways. One of the first is through your utility. One of the simplest ways is for families to go through their utility to get an energy audit and find out how they can get subsidies on a variety of different energy-saving devices. But these larger things that I'm talking about, those are going to be rolled out in the next couple of 3 to 6 months, where we're going to identify who the winners are of these big greenhouse gas reduction grants, who then become essentially the Green Bank or Climate Bank. And once those are identified, then it's going to become much more clear how communities or an NGO can access this funding. The way communities can find out about this funding is there's a whole range of different EPA technical assistance programs and organizations that at the end of the day, a community is going to have actually relatively easy access to through their cities or through NGOs that are already connected. Part of the funding is actually going to these NGOs who will be part of a network that will help with technical assistance.